Hello and welcome to episode number 163, a very special episode because I get to introduce you to three wonderful people I have had the pleasure of working with, and they're going to share with you their healing journey with Ayurveda. I'm going to introduce you to LaDonia, Lucy, and Ines, so please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at the Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hey there, and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. As I mentioned in the introduction, I am going to introduce you to three wonderful women I have had the pleasure of working with over the years. And they were very courageous in coming on and sharing their stories with you, their healing journey with Ayurveda. I'm going to introduce you to LaDonia, Lucy, and Ines. And I want to thank these ladies again for taking the time to talk with me and to share their story, with the idea being that it can help others out there. So thank you, ladies. And now let's get started with my chat with LaDonia. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. How are you? How's everybody?
I'm well, and I hope all the listeners are well out there. And I'm very happy, LaDonia, and thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us today, because it's nice to hear the client stories rather than me ravishing on all the time. So tell us, LaDonia, a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Sure. So I am originally from New Jersey in the United States. However, now I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia. Been living here for the past, I think, 12 or 13 years. Some people say that I don't get to claim Jersey anymore, but I'm happy to still claim it.
Great. So you've been in Georgia. So that's a big climate change as well, really.
Yes, it is a climate change. So it's funny. Sometimes I miss the winter, but I wonder if that's just the kapha in me wanting to be cozy and warm and, not
right.
wanting the heat to bother me.
Yeah, so true. Like kaphas love that winter time because you get to snuggle in and kind of hibernate, which suits perfectly the kapha constitution. So now that we know your high kapha constitution, tell us, LaDonia, how did you discover Ayurveda?
Yeah, so I discovered you. I discovered the podcast. How long has your podcast been on?
2017, August 2017, we started.
So I think I've been listening from the very beginning, because I was going to say it's been about, I think I started, it might have been, maybe I started to listen a little bit later in the year, but I started from the very beginning. But it was about 2017 that I started listening. And so interestingly, I was listening to another podcast on Chinese medicine. You were a guest, I believe, on that podcast.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, I like what she's talking about. And so I listened and I loved it. And I, kind of really did just kind of fell in love with the ways and the teachings and, your personality. I think I've said this to you before. Your energy is very calming to me. And it's kind of interesting. I was in a really bad car accident in 2016 and I developed a little bit of anxiety while driving. And so listening to podcasts, mainly yours, was one of the strategies that I implemented to kind of help me calm my situational anxiety that I was having while I was driving. So your spirit,
Wow.
even now, is still just very calming. And so, yes, so I just started listening to your podcast. And, even though it was because of a particular situation, I just, like I said, loved Ayurveda, loved, the teachings of it, and just kind of fell in love with it and have been listening ever since.
Oh, LaDonia, that's so great. I'm glad I was able to be with you on your
Yeah.
journeys and bring
And
you
I'm
some
much
calm.
better now. I don't have as much, like I've gotten past it, but like I
Right.
said, continue to listen.
Well, I am honored that I was part of your journey. So that's amazing. And I was looking back on when we first connected, and I think it was June 2019. You did the
Yeah.
free call.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you started with
Yep.
that. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey with Ayurveda? So you were listening to
Yes.
the podcast. You were
Yes.
intrigued. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love learning. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I am a registered nurse by
Mm.
profession. And so, of course, I know a lot of like Western medicine and physical ways to heal the body with like medicine and surgery and things like that. But I've always been really interested in other ways to help, patients heal, holistic ways of healing. So eating and meditation and things of that nature. So I believe, though, as a healthcare practitioner, at least for me, you have to start with yourself. You have to
Mm-hmm.
start with making the changes in your own life, and I wanted to make those changes, right? So
Right.
yeah, so I started, and it was kind of nerve-wracking. I was a little nervous to reach out. You seemed so far away at the time. You were living in France, and I said, "Who am I to
Right.
reach out to this person in France?" But I said, "Hey, I wanted to start by changing my diet."
Uh-huh.
I do believe that food should be used to nourish you and nourish your
Mm.
body. And it, just listening into to the podcast, I was able to hear from you and learn from you how food, can be used to nourish your body and help you heal and things of that nature. So that's where I wanted to start, at least for myself, so I could learn that and then again share it with other people.
Mm.
So yeah, that's where I started with the consultation, and you gave me so many good tips and tricks and just things that I didn't know, but that I think helped me. Just I don't it was maybe 15 or 20 minutes where I said, oh, I have to do this again. Like I have to learn more.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I like to give people some takeaways from that 15-minute call. And we can certainly, I mean, obviously we can't dive deep, but there's certainly some takeaways I can give people.
No.
Mm.
And that's, I think, what impressed me. We didn't really have time to dive all the way deep. I also teach, and so I'm the person. I'm like, what are the top 3 or 5 takeaways? So I
Mm.
definitely feel like you gave me at least 3 to 5 takeaways, things that I could implement, changes, small tweaks I can make to my diet
Mm.
in that moment, which were really helpful, which I did implement. But then, wanted to take it a step further. So I think then, we did another consultation and we talked more about it later.
Right. Then you went on to the in-depth consult.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's when we
Yeah.
got into the nitty-gritty. We had a good chat.
That's when, yeah, we had a good chat and we got into the nitty gritty. But yes, so I loved it and I've enjoyed it. And so thus far, I hope this will be a long journey that I can start with
Mm.
Ayurveda and Ayurvedic ways of healing and living and all those things. But where I am right now is, really focusing, like I said, on how to adjust and adapt my diet so that it is helping me pacifying some of my imbalances,
Right.
and trying to keep me in balance. Just little things that I would notice, like when I eat certain foods, I would have like skin reactions. And,
Mm.
in listening to the podcast and then listening to you, I'm like, oh, this might be because I'm having this food. Let's see what
Right.
happens if I stop.
Right.
And so
Right.
that was awesome for me to kind of see that correlation and see how I could just change my diet and just overall feel better for certain things. So I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
Yeah, and you were great because you were implementing everything. And I know you did the cleanse as well. And I recall, I
Hmm.
hope you don't mind me sharing this, is that you mentioned your cough at constitution. There was
Yeah.
a lot, the sluggish cough, digestion was a real issue.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so, And so what I loved about the cleanse, well, there's many things I loved about the cleanse, but to speak to that point specifically,
Mm,
again, you were able to kind of talk me through, like, these are some tips, so this is why it might be happening.
mm,
Let's try, this intervention or eat this or,
mm,
adjust this here.
mm,
And it worked. And I
mm-hmm.
don't know if this is the best place to say it, but I'm still doing better. Like,
Great.
I think one of the things is like, my digestion would be so slow. I wouldn't ever get hungry, but now I
Right.
like wake up hungry
Yeah, I
after
remember.
the.
I remember getting that email one morning because that was the issue. You just weren't hungry.
Yeah,
You weren't eating much at all. And
right.
then we had some tricks to implement. And then I got the emails. I was hungry at 6:30 a.m. and I was doing a little
Yes.
happy dance.
And it's so funny. Every time that happens, I like think of you. I'm like, we did it. I think we
Yes.
figured it out.
Yeah, because that slow digestion can be a real issue. Like some people would think, "Oh, that's great, you're not hungry," but it's not good. You want your digestive fire to be strong. So that's wonderful. And then
Yeah,
now you have, the education and you're empowered now to take charge of that yourself. You know what to do in order to stimulate your
right,
digestion, which is great.
right. And that's the other thing that I was going to say. What I really do appreciate about Ayurveda and some of the ways you describe it, it's about learning your body. It's about being connected to your body so that you then can know
Right.
what to do to how to take care of yourself and, address some of the issues that might come up. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's my absolute goal is for people to feel confident. Like, okay, I got this. I may need to come
Hmm.
back for a check-in, but for the most part, I know how
Yeah.
now to take care of myself. So that's amazing. And so tell us, LaDonia, how Ayurveda has changed you or your life, the way you live your life. Has it had an impact?
I definitely think it has had an impact. I think one of the smallest changes that I think is at least most profound for me is how I pay attention, just how do I want to say, just how I'm more in tune
Mm,
to my body,
mm,
and what I'm feeling, not just physically, but emotionally. Colette, you mentioned that I did the cleanse. And what I really appreciated about the cleanse is just how it wasn't just a focus on diet and or losing weight.
right.
So many of us have done cleanses where it's like, don't eat, don't drink, just sleep and exercise and you'll lose weight. That
Mm,
wasn't the purpose. It was really about, hey, let's pay attention to what's happening in your body and let's understand why that might be happening. And let's tune in to how we can make some adjustments, not just in your physical life, but it focused on emotional and spiritual well-being. Like
mm,
you talked to us about journaling and, what are some of the habits that you might be holding on to right now that might not be serving your own health and wellness. And I've never experienced a cleanse that really focused on the person as a whole, that
mm.
focused on not just the physical well-being, but the mental and the emotional and the spiritual well-being. I really loved being exposed to like the breath work and the meditations, and I just was like, this is great. You know what I mean? So I would say that how Ayurveda has changed my life. It's it's given me more permission to see and appreciate myself as a whole being. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like to really see how my physical wellness can impact my emotional wellness and vice versa,
right.
and to not separate those things anymore. Because again, I think I mentioned I'm a nurse. Well, that's kind of how we learn it sometimes
Yeah.
in Western healthcare or health professions. We learn things separately and that things are separate.
Mm.
And so I like the opportunity to see firsthand how it is all connected and how we can bring it together because, like I said, I would love to share this information and to help other people learn and to teach other people.
I love hearing that. So you want to go
Mhm.
forward and spread Ayurveda as well.
I do actually. I mean, I really have been empowered and just like energized
Mm.
by you and what I've learned. And yeah, so I do. I really would love to learn more for the sake of being able to help and teach others.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's what we want. We want more and more people out there talking about Ayurveda because I really feel that Ayurveda gives us the tools to help us in the world today and to make the
Yeah,
changes that we want to see in the world. So on that
yeah.
note, LaDonia, what advice or tip that you received or that you've learned in your healing journey would you give to the listeners out there today?
Mm. I love that question. Let me think. What tip would I give? Um,
Is there some golden nugget that you learned on your
yeah,
journey, or
yeah,
that something that you share with others? And it's
yeah.
oftentimes the simplest things.
Yeah, so like for me, I think is that it's okay to honor your inner self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we've learned for so long, we've learned a certain way of being. We've
Mm-hmm.
been steeped in that tradition. And then at some point, we realize, hey, this might not be working for me. But because it's what we know, we're afraid to depart from it, if
Right.
that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's something else that I've learned just in listening to the podcast and learning more about Ayurveda is that it is okay to say, that way of living and learning, like it served me then, but it's okay to move forward in a different way, right?
So
So,
true.
and that's been calling me, right? Like I said, it's inside me, but then I'm like nervous, like, does this make sense? It goes against things that I've learned, but
Right. Right.
yeah, like it's okay to honor my inner self and say, yeah, like that's what you learned and that will serve you. And maybe there's a way to bring the two together, but that's not a reason to like, not move forward in this new direction, right?
Right.
So it's okay to honor that part of yourself.
Yeah, it's so true. And you've just hit on a really good point, LaDonia, because, we have these belief systems or these ways of being from very young. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes a lot of emotion within those ways of being, and or it's cultural, or there's so much emotion tied up in them. And
Yeah.
so when we're stepping away from that, we're really stepping away from our foundations, and it can feel scary sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It can feel scary. Like I said, that's kind of where I am now. I'm like, oh no. Like, do I
Yeah,
go? Do I not? What do I
yeah.
do? But just more than anything else, I've been receiving all these messages and signs, from the universe to say, yeah, it's good. Step in that direction. And so just to honor that feeling that this is where I would even say just like my body and my inner spirit is
Mm,
pulling me to a
mm,
healthier way of living through
mm.
Ayurveda, and it's okay to go that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's essentially, the barometer, right? How we're feeling, and how we're feeling physically, emotionally,
Hmm.
spiritually. That should be the guide to what is right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely
Yeah.
so.
Because when you're taking this healing journey, and most of us, when we get onto this Ayurveda journey, we become very passionate about it. And of
Hmm.
course we want to share it with everybody. And sometimes people don't understand what it is, or they're not ready, to hear it. And so that can leave us feeling a little bit lonely on this journey, which is why
Right.
it's great to have these communities where we can speak about this. I think that's why it's so important. And that point you made is just checking in with yourself. And if it feels
Hmm.
good within you, and if it is helping you thrive and giving you vitality, well, then it has to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So good job, Colette. You converted me.
Well, I must say, you were very, committed throughout your journey as well. I know there was a lot of changes going on for you, but you're always so
Hmm.
committed to your well-being.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it takes that, like sometimes it takes, some people say the rug being pulled from underneath you for you
Mm,
to say, okay, something's got to give. Right.
right, right.
So yeah, I kind of felt like, it was a great time to choose a different way of being and a different
Mm,
way of living. So it
mm,
all just kind of worked out.
great. Well, LaDonia, I really appreciate you, sharing this information with the listeners today, and sharing your story and being so open. And I think it's really going to help people out there. And well done to you, for
Oh, thank you.
investing in this journey, and you're reaping the benefits. And no doubt you're going to go forward and help so many other people, especially with your background,
Mhm.
as a nurse, and taking that along with Ayurveda. This is what we need. We need different people from different walks of life and different professions to take this information and then, digest it. And like now you can use your language as, a nurse, and then bringing in Ayurveda as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Fantastic. Well, wishing you all the very best with that. And please keep me posted on how you're doing. I'd love to hear. And thanks again,
Will do.
LaDonia, for taking the time. Truly appreciate it.
No problem, Colette. Anytime.
Okay, take care of yourself and keep me
You
posted on
too.
how you're
Take care.
doing.
Sounds good.
Okay, ciao for now.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with LaDonia, and thanks again, LaDonia, for sharing your journey with Ayurveda. And I'm really looking forward to hearing how you bring Ayurveda into your work and spreading that Ayurvedic wisdom throughout the world, which is what we want more of, which is wonderful. Now, I mentioned in the chat with LaDonia about how it can be lonely as you go on this Ayurveda journey, and maybe your partner or people in your family or your friends don't quite understand your enthusiasm or passion about Ayurveda. And so it's really important for us to have these close groups to share with each other, to support each other, to hold each other accountable on implementing these great Ayurveda dinacharya and so on. And I'm working on bringing together a community. So I will have more info on that in the new year. I feel that the social media platforms don't provide the intimacy I want in an Ayurvedic group. And so I'm working on a place where we can have this supportive community where it's nurturing and supportive and everyone can feel very safe and sharing and so on. So stay tuned because that will be coming in January 2021. And I advise you to sign up for my newsletter if you haven't already done so, because that's where you'll get all this detailed information on the new community, on upcoming events and so on. I give lots of tips in my newsletters as well. So check out the link in the show notes or just go to my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, sign up for the newsletter, and I will keep you posted. Okay, on to my next wonderful guest, who is Lucy. And now I have the pleasure to introduce you to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hi, Colette. Hiya.
Lucy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story with the listeners. I really appreciate it. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for having me, Colette.
Sure.
So I'm Lucy. I'm living in Cardiff. So I'm originally from Southampton in the south of England and moved to Cardiff, about 20 years ago, and have stayed.
Lovely land of Wales.
Yeah, exactly. Came here for university like so many and never left.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I met my husband here and got two small children. Yeah, I'm a yoga teacher. So I used to actually be an HR consultant. So I used to work more in the corporate world. And then when I had my eldest, he's 5 now, I didn't go back into that world. I retrained to become a yoga teacher, something I'd wanted to do for a long time. And yes, I've now got I'm a yoga teacher teaching yoga and wellbeing workshops around Cardiff and presently a lot online, obviously, as well. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I feel very settled in Cardiff now. You know, my family are kind of all over, but yeah, we've kind of made a home in Cardiff now, which is, it's lovely here, really good.
Yeah, well, I remember visiting Cardiff before, and you've amazing countryside in Wales as well. It really reminds me of the Irish countryside, actually.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and you're never far from a beach. You know, we're really lucky.
Yeah,
so that's always
true.
good.
Beautiful. So I was looking back on our records, Lucy, and I saw that our first contact, I think, was around May 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, around then.
Yeah. And so I know we did the free call first just to chit chat a bit. And then can you tell us a little bit, let's start with how you came across Ayurveda. Of course, you were studying yoga, so you probably got introduced to it through your yoga studies, I presume.
Well, I was thinking about this because I'd say it was probably before that, because I was very interested in yoga. I did a degree in Buddhism and philosophy at Cardiff University. So that kind of got my interest in yoga. Yeah. And it was something I was very interested in. And I went traveling for a couple of years and we spent a lot of time in India and Nepal and, kind of got quite immersed in that kind of philosophy as well. And then I remember it was just after we got married, I think, in 2010. And I'd read some books on on our honeymoon, and Ayurveda was something that kept coming up in my yoga books and some of my kind of healing books. So it just got my interest. And I did a course in 2012, which was by a lady in Cardiff. And it was an introduction to Ayurveda and massage. And, really kind of my interest started there. And I started reading a lot of books. There weren't so many podcasts around then. So it was a lot of reading books. And then, so something I've always had an interest in, but never really done much more than just read books about it. And then it was more so when I started doing my yoga teacher training in 2016, that I started to read about it a bit more. And then especially with having children, it was, something that I really thought about as my health kind of changed, being pregnant and then, what happens after having a baby and just trying to look after myself. And I know that's when I reached out to you after having my second baby. I really wanted to make sure I, looked after my well-being and, got back to a place of balance as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think Ayurveda has such great advice for, preconception, during pregnancy and postpartum. And we've covered that a lot in different podcast episodes. And I know exactly that's when we first started talking, you were in that postpartum stage, because there is a lot of vata aggravation at this time, because vata is required to help push the baby out of the body. And so in our society, unfortunately in the West, the mothers are sent home with this baby and they're a lot of times can be vata aggravated and have a lot going on with their own body and mind, and then have to take care of this baby. It's also new and it's also overwhelming. Can you tell us a little bit about that for you?
Yes, definitely. Well, I think it was only after we spoke in that May, like you said. So my son was born at the end of September 2018. And being self-employed, I went back to work quite quickly after having him. So I was back in work in the January and, by no means as much as I had been, but I was still, teaching yoga and still running workshops. And I just noticed I was feeling really, really exhausted, which, obviously having a newborn and a toddler, I'm bound to be, but it was just a different type of exhaustion. And also I just found I felt bloated a lot and just didn't feel myself is the only way I can put it. And then from speaking with you, what was really helpful, and I wish I'd known it sooner, was some of the things I was trying to do, especially as, it was becoming a bit warmer. I was trying to eat lots of salads. And at that point I had a lot of, every morning I'd always make a smoothie with like ice, so I was having a lot of cold things and just didn't even put two and two together that, as I've got quite a high vata dosha, that could be potentially aggravating for that. Having also, and as you had explained on the call, going through that process of having a baby, you lose all that kind of goodness in you when you actually have your baby. And then afterwards, that kind of whether you use the exact term, Colette, but how I kind of remembered it was that kind of almost hole that's left, your tummy's had this baby in it and all of a sudden all that goodness is gone, but there's a lot of space and air left. And, you want to nourish that. And instead I was just putting a lot of cold, raw food in, and thinking I was being healthy and trying to look after myself. But actually, I could tell it wasn't right for me. And the moment I started to change my diet, having more like nourishing foods and easy to digest, it made a massive difference just instantly. And that was something that I really remembered from that call.
Yeah, I think it's really important for this information to get out there about the rejuvenation necessary after birth, because it's a lot of pressure on a mom just to kind of get on with it. And not a lot of support, unfortunately. So the more we can get this wonderful Ayurvedic wisdom out there that the mother needs to be just focused on the baby and everybody else needs to take care of the mother, make sure she's really supported. But yeah, and just as you said, just knowing that information as well gives you permission to kind of back off a little bit, because again, in our society, it's all this body coming back after birth and getting back, to normal life after you had a baby. It's so much pressure.
It's massive pressure. And I think especially at the moment, there's so much going on in the world anyway, let alone having that extra pressure and, it's just not required. And I think especially on your first, where you don't know any different, you think, well, that's normal. I should be going back into work. And I think that was a massive thing when I had my firstborn, and my eldest. I didn't go back to work for a number of reasons, but I'm so glad I didn't, because if I'd gone back into that environment, it was a very high pressured role. It wasn't a healthy environment or atmosphere to be in. It was very, when I say aggressive, not the company, just more that kind of culture. And, it was very fast paced. It just did not suit who I was as a person and what I was what I wanted to bring in for my family, and that kind of family life I wanted to create. So I think there's a lot of pressure on women to kind of go back to what you were doing before. And actually so much changes when you have a baby, not just physically, but what becomes important and what isn't important so much anymore.
Exactly. So true. And Ayurveda gives you permission to go, no, you need to just be focused on the health of you and your baby right now. And, everything else should wait and can wait. So I think that's really important knowledge to be out there. And so that was in May 2019. And then I think you went on to do the Daily Habits for Holistic Health course, right?
I did. Yeah, I did. So that was really good. And I think what was lovely with that was a lot of it, I was like, I didn't realize I was doing this. I didn't realize I'd been doing this before, or I used to do this and I kind of forgot about it because I had a baby and then, life took over, just had fallen out of habit. So it was a really good reminder, and it's so easy to do. It's just so easy to bring those small habits into your life, it doesn't need to be massive changes. And I think that's what I really loved about that course was, you haven't got to do some big grand gesture. You can just make a few small tweaks here and there, and it really makes a massive difference.
Right.
To how you live every day.
Exactly. And those small little things, or small little habits day in, day out have a big impact over the long term. And also you get a lot of education then around the gunas as well, which I think is important to understand as you go through your Ayurvedic journey. It's like kind of layering on. Okay, you have the basics now. You understand the doshas, you understand your signs of aggravation, you understand how to balance yourself. And then it's like, okay, now we need to move forward more into the gunas. What are the 10 pairs of opposites? How you can bring them into your life. So that's the thing with Ayurveda. It's constant learning, but always just so intriguing and really, so easy to incorporate into your life. And so obviously you're working in yoga. So how are you bringing this into your professional and your personal life?
Yes, I think just what you said then just made me think when you're saying about starting with those kind of more basics and then you build it up. It's I see the similarity with yoga in that. So a lot of the yoga I teach, I will do a lot of teaching, very basic moves and just getting the body used to that kind of warming up and simple moves and that repetition. My teacher training was very much about that repetition, that rhythm, that regularity, and every class I'll always bring that in, because I think once your body's got that basics, you don't need to have some big grand gestures from an Ayurveda point of view, but also with the yoga, you don't have to do those really intricate stands poses that you see other people doing. You can actually just do very basic things and your body really responds to that. If you do it day in, day out, it's just those small things. So I think the Ayurveda and yoga, I know that the sister sciences to one another, that connection with them both is so key, because to me, just bringing some of those basic things in from an Ayurveda point of view, but also yoga, they really are interlinked. So how, with the yoga, every morning I'll start doing some of my Ayurveda practice and then it links into my yoga. So I'll, start the day with a hot lemon and then I'll go straight into my yoga, maybe do some journaling before I start the day, and it just sets me up for the day. When I talk to some of my private yoga clients, we'll bring in some Ayurveda with that just because it naturally fits in. A lot of them might come to me whilst it's from a yoga point of view, they want to see me. We'll talk about lifestyle, we'll talk about diet, we'll talk about their sleep patterns, and you can see then how just a few small changes can really impact them alongside with the yoga as well.
Yes, so true. And it's just building a really great foundation of that holistic health to kind of keep you grounded, keep your doshas pacified as you go through life. And of course, there's always going to be stressors, right? But with these practices of Ayurveda and yoga, you can, flow through those stressors that come up without getting caught up in them and letting them take over you physically and mentally.
Definitely. It's almost like you can take yourself out of the situation. You can see where you've come off balance, and you can, the more awareness you have of yourself, which is what I think yoga and Ayurveda gives you, is that awareness of yourself. Then you can start to think, okay, well, maybe I can see where I've come off balance, and by just doing this or that, I can start to bring myself back in balance. Because like you said, there's always going to be stresses and things that take us off balance. It's just about learning. And that's what I've really learned from yoga and Ayurveda, is I can come back to balance a lot quicker than I used to. It would take me quite a while. 10 years ago, it would take me a very long time to get back to balance. Whereas now I find it, I still come off balance, I'm human, but I can get back into that kind of place. I'm back to, I'd say, being more me. I can be, more cheerful, or I find humor in things. When I don't do that, I know I'm off balance.
Right, exactly. And that's it. It's having the awareness and finding and being aware of the subtle signals of when you are out of balance. And we did a follow-up consultation recently again, right? And we talked about how a lot about draining energy, right? I think that came up a lot for you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so I reached out to you recently because without even realizing it, I think my sleep had become really affected. I've always slept amazing, probably to the annoyance of a lot of people. I could fall asleep anywhere, and I love my sleep, but equally I'm 5 o'clock I can get up and I'm ready for the day. I don't need to sleep late, but I do like my sleep. And then a couple of months ago just started to really struggle. I could fall asleep. I couldn't stay asleep. I kept waking up and just didn't really know what was going on. And that's when I got in contact with you, Colette, because I always come back to Ayurveda. I really believe there's something to be learned from every experience. And I just couldn't work out what was going on and what it was trying to teach me, I suppose. And, I really found our consultation useful and interesting. And I think, and I'm seeing this with a lot of people I'm speaking with, but kind of unknown to me, I think it was just the anxiety of what's going on in the world around us at the moment. And I probably hadn't realized the impact of, what had been happening since the end of March with, homeschooling and having the children with me and still trying to keep my business going and my husband's business going. And, and just, I'd been watching the news too much and just, having a lot of negative emotion, negative kind of energy around me, I think. And I just started to really realize it had an impact on me without realizing.
Yeah. And I think that's happening a lot of people. Like we're getting on with our lives while there's all this craziness happening in the world. But there's this undertow of stress that's constantly there because of course it is. We're constantly worried about what we're touching. Do I have my mask? Where am I going today? What do I have to be aware of with this COVID crisis? So yeah, I think, it's constantly there. Even if we think we have it, we're good, we have it all together, you'll see it come out in like the weirdest of circumstances.
Yeah, or I'm watching something on TV and I see people hugging. I'm like, oh,
I know.
Oh, God, yes, you're allowed to do it. You're on a TV program. That's probably a while ago, but it's that it now seems strange to see people hugging.
I know,
which is such a shame.
But it is.
And it's I'm seeing a lot with people just. I can see that anxiety. I can see that even the people who I would say are not normally anxious people, by nature, there's that, like you said, that kind of low-lying energy just around at the moment. Yeah. And I think after our chat, I'm really mindful of what can be my triggers and what I really need to be mindful of. And that's what I love with Ayurveda. You keep learning, but also it keeps almost challenging you. You can't become passive and just be like, okay, I've sorted it now.
Yeah.
Like, there's always going to be more thrown at us, and it's about constantly making choices because everyone can make, most of us are very fortunate to be able to make a choice. And I think whilst that can seem quite daunting, oh gosh, it's down to me, that's also really empowering of I can actually resolve this if I put the energy into it and the motivation into it as well. That's
it. And you're taking control of things and knowing that you can manage it rather than the aggravations taking control of you. Yeah. We went through all the foods and the daily habits, right? And put in some practices in place and just to ensure that you're getting good night's sleep, but also looking at where that vata energy was draining and that lethargy and then the anxiety and the stress is coming in. So just really having an in-depth chat about that. And I think we brought to light a lot of things and where your energy was being drained and where, vata was really becoming aggravated, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think, and I remember we had a good chat about kind of the different stages of life. And, I definitely know I've kind of not realized I've done it, but, I've been very aware of, like you said, where I'm putting my energy and, the kind of relationships that might drain that and the ones that, especially at the moment where we're not getting to see people. There's some people, that really lift you up and, you miss those, and just being very mindful of, where I want to be putting my energy. Like I've got a young family. Right. I want to spend time with them and my job I love. And, that means you can't give everything to everyone. And I think as a woman and as a new mum, that I think that's quite a struggle because you kind of still pine for those old friendships and going out and doing things, but you can't do it all, and something has to give. And I think as you get a bit older, you get a bit more comfortable with those decisions, I suppose. Yeah,
it's so true. And it's, absolutely, it's putting your priorities in place and also just seeing the reality of the situation, right? For all of us, it's like, okay, I have these responsibilities now. And so what needs to, whether it's with children or minding older parents or, having a job that is a big responsibility, you have to look at, okay, what in my life, do I need to put in place so I can, have lots of energy and vitality for this responsibility, and what do I need to let go of? Because there's so many energy drains and things that we do just because we've always done them. And I think it's really good, especially this time of the year, the end of the year, to take stock and have a look at, okay, what do I want to bring forward into the next year? And really, have a look at what's giving me positive energy and what's draining.
Definitely. And in each, in my yoga classes, we do this kind of throwing out practice. And some of the time I think about things like this. It's not just physically any tension, but also, what can build up that we haven't realized. And sometimes it can be, like you said, those, whether it's relationships or it might be a situation that we keep playing over in our mind, or, it could be, like you said, it's, it might be more something that's just been, created and you didn't realize, and you just need to let go of it sometimes, because you just can't do if you try and be everything to everyone, you just, that's why I really realized I'm just going to be drained and not be any use to anyone.
Exactly.
So, it's just having that realization. I think our call was really good for that, because we were talking about the different stages of life and, that transition from the Pitta to the Vata stage of life, and how that transition. I remember you recommended a podcast to me and I really enjoyed it around that kind of,
losing my mojo.
That was it. Losing my mojo. And it was like, I thought, am I losing my mojo? Am I going mad? But it was actually like seeing it as a positive. Like, well, actually, no, I'm just trying not to. I don't have to compete with everything anymore. I feel quite comfortable not doing that.
And that's a beautiful way to be in the Pitta stage of life. That competitive edge is there for a reason, because, as we go through teenage years and 20s, 30s, we need that fire to succeed in life and to carry out all we want. But then as we go into our 40s and 50s, it's like we need to back off because we have less energy, and it's nice not to be that competitive with others or to feel that we need all this material stuff. But there can be a little bit of a freak out going, what's happening to me?
And I think that was kind of when we were having that chat, I was thinking, like, because I've got this background from an HR point of view, and I still love doing stuff with HR, but I don't have that same drive I did 10 years ago, which I was very high pitch, and to the point where I was definitely out of balance in that respect. But I was so driven and wanted to succeed and just do well. And I was like, where's that gone? And, I have a lot of people still say to me, why don't you do more HR things? You could do that. You could do it. And I'm just like, I have not got the inclination. And I thought, what's wrong with me? But, I still do HR things, but in a very different way now. It's not that same desire to succeed and, challenge myself in that way. I've done that and I loved it at the time, but it's of no interest to me right now. It's really strange.
But it's also lovely to be okay to let that go. It was like, it was great. I loved it. I succeeded in it. And now it's time for something else,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And having that realization.
Yeah. That's just good advice, Lucy. And so as we finish up here, Lucy, is there any tip or Ayurvedic tip, obviously, or advice that you've learned on your journey that you would like to share with the listener? I think you already gave some great tidbits, but is there anything else as we finish up?
I think probably two things. Is one is just that simple, like you said, those daily habits. I think I see it when I have people come to me in yoga classes, and that kind of thinking that they need to make big changes. And my advice always is, I think, just start small, and it doesn't have to be. Just think about what you do every day, and is there just one thing that you could slightly change? Maybe it's your mindset. Maybe you find you're complaining a lot. Well, try and say a few positive things. Or if you start your day having no breakfast, maybe just have some breakfast. It just only has to be small things. And I think I'd really recommend your daily habits course to people, because I think it just helps people have that reset, and it's nothing too drastic, and then, and also from doing that, you can start to say, I can do it. So that just has a knock-on effect, oh, I did that. Well, maybe I could do this tomorrow. And you just start to realize you can make those changes, and it makes an impact and a difference on your life.
So true.
And the other thing, I think, I wish there was more of, and you kind of touched on it earlier, Colette, is I just wish there was more awareness around Ayurveda for a woman being pregnant, but definitely that postpartum stage, that fourth trimester, that after you have a baby, and because you're so knackered, you don't have the time to think about it. So I wish there was that awareness kind of before, and then that support afterwards. And I think, just being aware that just look after yourself, just nourish yourself. And,
Right.
and not just from a diet point of view, but everything that kind of comes with it. I just, would really urge any woman, if they're listening to this, if you're pregnant or you've just had a baby, to listen to your podcast that you've got, Colette, because I know you've got a couple around that time.
Yeah, we did 3 in all the stages with Dr. Meenakshi
so
Gupta.
helpful.
Yeah. Lucy, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you as always. And thank you.
Colette.
It's so great for you to be so open and to share your story, because I really think it will help a lot of people out there. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, no. Well, thank you for having me. And I look forward to hearing many more of your podcasts, Colette. They're brilliant.
Oh, thank you, my dear. Okay, well, keep in touch. Keep me posted on how you're doing.
I will. I will.
Right. Take care.
You too. Bye
for now. Bye. Thank you again, Lucy, for that great conversation and for sharing your story. Really wonderful. Now, I wanted to mention those podcast episodes I did with Vidya Meenakshi Gupta were number 95 on preconception, number 97 was on pregnancy, diet and lifestyle, and number 100 was on postpartum. So check those out. There's a lot of Ayurvedic wisdom in there from Vidya Meenakshi Gupta. And also Lucy mentioned the Daily Habits course. I have that available. It's an online 28-day self-paced course, and I'll put that link in the show notes if you're interested in it. And earlier we mentioned with LaDonia the cleanse. And private cleanses are available throughout the year where you pick your own dates, and I tailor the cleanse to you and support you throughout the cleanse. However, in January, I do have a discounted cleanse where we go through it as a group. That will start January 22nd, 2021. So I will put that link in the show notes as the group Digestive Reset Cleanse, which is discounted. And I also have a group discounted Reset, Restore, Renew program, which incorporates the cleanse, the consult, and my daily habits course. So you may be interested in that also. And I'll put that link in the show notes. Just an FYI, if you go straight to my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, you'll find the group discounted programs in the events page. And then for the private programs, you'll find them under services and programs. Okay, let me introduce you to the next guest, who is Ines. So now I'm very happy to introduce you to one of my clients, Ines. Hi, Ines. How are you?
Hi, I'm super well. Thank you. I'm so excited to be on the podcast with you today.
Ines, I'm really happy that you get to share your stories. I think these stories are really powerful. People telling their journeys with Ayurveda really helps others as well. So can you start, Ines, with telling the listeners where you're from and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Ines and I'm from France, as you can all tell from my accent. Mm-hmm. And I am a plant-based nutrition coach. And I work and I created my business all online a few years ago, as I was always passionate about holistic health and how to actually cure myself holistically. Mm-hmm. And I found the power of plants and Ayurveda. And today I'm trying to include more and more Ayurveda, and I plan on getting a certification actually next year, as I'm so passionate about this. So I help women eat more plants by giving them simple tools, and so that they can tune into their body and nourishing themselves more intuitively, and just bringing more curiousness around their eating.
Love it. So your curiosity with plants came from wanting to heal yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I can share the journey that started for me, three years ago. Mm-hmm. I've been always living in many different countries and moved a lot in my life. And at that point in time, I was in Argentina and I started having and experiencing a lot of eczema throughout my entire body. So basically a skin rash, and I was really panicked, and I knew that I was already dealing with it a little bit beforehand, but it was never to that scale. Right. And the remedies that were given to me or prescribed by dermatologists the dermatologist were always corticoid creams, and I could see that my skin was turning whiter and that it was never curing the problem, the root problem, because I was keeping on having those episodes and they were getting worse and worse. And even though I would put cream, they would always come back. So I knew that this was not a long-term solution. And that's when my healing journey started. And I found out about a plant-based diet and I started delving into that. And later on, I managed to cure mostly my eczema with plants, but I realized that the plants were not enough and that I still had a little bit of eczema, and I was like, okay, there must be something more that I should be addressing, but I didn't know what. And that's when I came across Ayurveda.
Right. And so you discovered Ayurveda and started studying it yourself. Is that correct? Or just reading up on it?
So actually I just went to a consultation, and at that time I was living then in Canada.
Okay.
And I was blown away because it took me literally 1 year to realize that certain food were triggering my eczema. Because I was just eliminating on my own and trying to do all these things. And for me, food is everything, and having to be deprived of certain food was really stressing me out. And it took me 1 year to realize that, for example, tomatoes were a big trigger for me. Right. And in that Ayurveda consultation that I had in Canada, after 15 minutes, after giving her, answering a few questions from her, she told me about the type of person I was. And I found it very intriguing. I was like, how do you know this about me?
Right.
You don't know. And then she told me that, for example, tomatoes, could be triggering my eczema. And I was like, oh my God, I just realized that 3 days ago. And you tell me there is a science, a medicine that could have already given me all this information, and I would not have had to go through the trials and error that caused me so much pain. And that's when I started really delving into Ayurveda.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the thing. I think everyone's reaction when they first do an Ayurvedic consultation is like, how do you know me so well? And then realizing that there's this whole science there. And when we chatted, I think it was in August of this year, 2020, that you contacted me first. We did a 15-minute free call, and then you went on and did the consultation. And when I met you, your hands were pretty bad at that stage, right?
Yeah, exactly. So between that time in Canada and that time now, this year, I just booked two consultation with some Ayurvedic doctor, but it was they were not following me, and a lot of things happened. I was traveling, backpacking in South America last year. Now I am living in Australia, Melbourne, and with COVID, a lot of things changed. And I really try to because I'm always passionate and I always try to learn on my own. I love learning through the books and through podcasts and all that. And so I was trying to DIY it. And at that point in time this year with the lockdown, it has been a very difficult year for me. And I could see the expression of that difficulty through my body telling me there was really something wrong going on, because I never experienced so much eczema in my life, even more so than when I was in Argentina. And that's when I felt like I want to find someone who can follow me and who I can always have access to in the future, because life is there will always be ups and downs, and I want to find that person who will always be there for me. And I'm so glad that I found you, and now that I know that I have always access to you whenever I will have the need to. And ever since we started working together, everything on my skin has healed, and I couldn't be more grateful, because I know that health is our greatest wealth. I preach it. That's what I do also for a living, and I help people with. And I could feel that in my body, I was not feeling myself anymore, and I was not having the energy and the positivity that I usually have, and my eczema was really impacting my mental health as well.
Yeah.
It's all linked, right? And
absolutely. Yeah, I remember we spoke, we did the 15-minute, the inquiry call, and then we did a consult together, and we made some changes, and then you're like, I'm really thinking about doing the cleanse. And
yes.
I said that would be really great for you because it's a complete reset. And so I think from the consult, just like in the other consults you got with other Ayurvedic practitioners, that there was helpful information. But then you went forward and did the cleanse. I think that's when you noticed a lot during that reset. That's when you had a lot of aha moments, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it was good actually to book the consultation, the private consultation, like a month ahead of the cleanse, because that gave me time to actually put in place some new routine. And then when we started the cleanse, I was already strong on these routines, and I could focus on the specific aspects of the cleanse. And it was actually very easy for me to transition into the cleanse. Yeah. So especially during the middle of the cleanse, during the second week, that's when I could really see my skin heal completely, because I had like cracks on my fingertips for months
so
at
sore.
that time.
Yeah,
so sore. I would put cream like 10, 20 times a day, oil, nothing would work. And I knew that the problem was inside, and I needed to cure myself from the inside out. And at that point, I could see every day progress on my skin, and the rashes as well. They were really calming down, and the most impact I had was also on my mindset and on the lightness I could feel throughout not only my body, but also in my mind. I could feel, that I was actually achieving being in the flow, literally, for I think the first time in my life. I thought maybe I had achieved like flow state before, because I was feeling good at some point in my life before as well. But that flow that I experienced when I would sit at my desk in the morning and focus on difficult tasks for me, like copywriting doesn't come in easy, but I was writing up landing pages for my website, and it would just flow, and it was effortless. And I was like, wow, like, what is this? Like, I want to live in that state all the time now. Now that I've reached it, like, I'm never going back.
Yeah, it was it's always wonderful to watch the clients' journeys and to see the excitement or the aha moments. And for you, a lot of it we had to talk about was your work ethic, because you're very passionate. You have your own business, the plant-based coaching business, and you would work like most of us entrepreneurs a lot, right? So we had to talk a lot about that. I remember during the consult and cleanse.
Yes. Yeah. Before we started working together, I would just work, like morning, afternoon, nights, usually even through the nights, because, that's how I used to operate.
And especially during COVID as well, when you were, you didn't have any other outlets.
Yeah, not at all. I couldn't do anything, especially in Melbourne. The second wave lasted like 5 months.
You had one of the strictest lockdowns there.
Yeah. It was really, really hard. And so all I could do was work, and I was really happy to do it. But I never realized before we actually started talking that could be a trigger for my eczema. For me, I was like, no, it's not. Like, I'm happy doing my work. Like, it's not stressing me. Yeah. But actually, I was just tiring myself. And it's funny because now, just a few months later, my work day now is completely different, and I make sure that I finish work at 6 p.m. most days. Like, most days I'm really good at like finishing at 6 p.m. and that's my new normal. And now I don't want to go back to working late at night and all that.
I love it. And that's a huge difference. It sounds like it's something simple, but living in tune with the circadian rhythms and understanding those energies and how to work with them. So you experience that flow like you did during the cleanse. It's really important in life. It's really important for us to take those breaks. And we have this concept, especially in the West, is more is better. So the more work we do, it's better. But actually, as you can see, your body will talk to you physically and mentally, and your body gives you clear indications about when it's feeling stressed or the doshas are imbalanced, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I can definitely attest that less is more. And I would have never believed that I would be this kind of person one day where I can actually, I knew I could see some entrepreneurs like work less and be more productive. But in the back of my mind, I was never convinced that this was actually something possible and that it was true. But now, because I'm very, very pizza and now I totally believe in that because I have experienced it. And I think that everybody who wants to get on a journey like this, it's by experimenting it and experiencing it in their life that then they will be convinced. Like maybe hearing me right now will trigger their curiosity, but I really encourage anyone to try it out because it's only good things can happen when you follow Ayurveda principles.
Exactly. It's all natural. It's connecting us with nature and with our true nature. And it's so true. We could talk and talk and talk all day, Ines, about it. But until somebody experiences the changes within their own body, that's when the magic happens. And that's when the foods change or the lifestyle changes or self-care. So yeah, it really is an experiential practice. So we can see it has changed the way you work and it's changed the way you live your life now. So your routines are different, like you mentioned. And you're also going on to study Ayurveda. You plan to do that, which is amazing, and bring it into your own work, you mentioned.
Yes, exactly. I so believe in the power of Ayurveda because I saw it transform my personal life, and everything that I teach and I coach is things that I've experienced in my life that I wish more people knew about and that I wish I knew early on in my life, and that I would have, this would have actually saved me years of pain and trials. So if I can share this knowledge with more people, this is something that will make me really happy. And I know that this will have this is my dharma, my mission.
Love it.
And I want to make sure that as many women as possible have all the tools to tune in into their body and become more intuitive and go back to their true nature. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And this is what we need. We need more people out there spreading the word of Ayurveda. Can you tell people the name of your business, Ines?
Yeah. So my name is Ines Shubi. That's my Instagram and that's also my website, InesShubi.com. So it's INESSCHUBI.com. And they can learn about my programs that I have at the moment and join the wait list because all of the programs that I offer, they're all live based. I don't have sales based because I believe that in the power of the group coaching and the accountability and so that's why I have set dates for all of my programs.
Good for you. That's great. Great. So Ines, as we finish up here, do you have any Ayurvedic tip or advice that you've learned in your journey that you would like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. So I do remember that at the beginning of my journey, I felt really overwhelmed, especially for the food part, when I heard about okay, there are food that are triggering and some that are pacifying. And when you shared that with me, actually, that helped me a lot to realize that these food recommendations are just guidelines for when your body is out of balance. It's not a way of eating for the rest of your life. Like, for example, tomatoes. I know that I can have tomatoes. I can have pizza with a lot of tomatoes on it when my body is in balance. And it's just that when my body is out of balance, I have these guidelines, this food list where I can go, and now I know them by heart, which foods are actually triggering and which there aren't. And that really reassured me. And lastly, the thing is that we think, there is maybe one trigger in our life that is like causing our body to be out of balance, but in reality, it's an accumulation of several things. Right. And that would, over time, when you layer them up, then that's when you start having an expression of the imbalance on your body. And for me, for example, was the eczema. But I always thought in the past that it was just, maybe it's just because I've ate this one thing at that one time. But no, actually, now that I have the knowledge, I know that the time in Argentina was actually stressful, and it was my first job. It was also very hot, and I was eating triggering food at the same time. So It was different aspects of my life that were triggering and making me having eczema at that time. So know that we're all like very intricate human beings, and it's all a journey about learning about ourselves, and learning to navigate our bodies and our minds. And Ayurveda is an amazing science and gives us amazing tools to get shortcuts and to get to know ourselves faster, actually. So that's why I love it, and I'm so passionate about it. And I'm so grateful for you for putting the information out there in such a beautiful way, and caring so much about all of the listeners, and spreading so much information for everyone for free on the podcast. But really the difference was that when I started getting private consultation with you, and that's when I started experiencing really the true power of Ayurveda. So I really encourage everyone to get on a call with you and see if that would be a good fit for them.
Thank you so much, Ines. That's very sweet of you to say. And I have loved supporting you on your journey. You've been so passionate about it. It's been wonderful to watch your journey with Ayurveda. And that was amazing advice that you gave people there. It's so true. We are each are individual, complicated human beings, and there's so much that can be affecting us. So it's good to get support from someone, a professional, who can look at every aspect and see where those imbalances are coming from. And also really important, Ines, that you mentioned the foods. And I really want to reiterate that again, is that you can enjoy food in moderation all the time, but it's when your body has an aggravation that then you have to look at what's triggering you. But I think it's really good to be clear about that there's no specific dosha diet or Ayurvedic diet, that you should be able to enjoy all foods, in moderation. Some foods maybe 20% of the time if they are triggering for you, and know how to read your body. And that's what's my mission is, to educate each individual on how to read their body, know their subtle signs of aggravation, and how to make adjustments in their diet and lifestyle and self-care and so on to bring their body back into balance. So Ines, thank you so much for sharing this information today. It's truly going to help people out there. And I just love your passion. And I wish you all the best in your studies with Ayurveda and in your, bring that into your work. And as you know, I'm always available if you have any questions along the way.
Thank you so much, Colette, for this opportunity to share my experience with your listeners.
My pleasure. Okay. Well, I'll be keeping an eye on you and your business and your Ayurvedic studies, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much, Ines. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you, Colette.
So there you go. 3 wonderful women sharing their stories, Ines, Lucy, and LaDonia. And thanks again, ladies. Really appreciate you sharing your healing journeys with Ayurveda on the podcast. And as a reminder, check out the show notes for the information on my cleanses and the daily habits. They're available privately throughout the year, but I do have that group discounted cleanse, which includes a 90-minute consultation. The cleanse is tailored to you. We just go through it in a group format. That's January 22nd, 2021. And also starting January 22nd is the group discounted Reset, Restore, Renew program. So in that program, you get all my services, all my programs. So you get the 90-minute consult, the cleanse, a midpoint check-in, you get the daily habits course, and at the end of all that cleansing and educational program, you get a 60-minute call with me. So the objective is, after the Reset, Restore, Renew program, that you feel empowered and confident to go forward and take care of your health and well-being. So I'll put all those links in the show notes. I'll also link to the newsletter, which I recommend you sign up to, because I'm going to be coming out with a lot of new stuff in January. I've been busy during these COVID lockdown times. Plenty of time on my hands to put together some new stuff. If you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it. And if you'd like to leave a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast, I would truly appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and the new episodes will automatically download for you. Okay, that's it for now. Take good care of yourself. Be well. Happy holiday season. And I look forward to connecting with you soon again. Slán go fóill. Bye for now.